Welcome, scholars. This is a small deal calculator. It is very different than the calculator that you guys presently have. The things that you will notice differently on this calculator that is not present is the acquisition fee will be missing and the asset management fee will be missing. This calculator is intended for smaller deals, generally deals that are 25 units or less, and it's not cap rate driven all the time because smaller deals, you're looking for cash flow. So that being said, I'm going to walk you through the uses of this small deal calculator. You can use it for purchasing properties that you're buying on your own, or you're buying in a joint venture or partnership. So starting off, we have the asking price, or what you might consider the purchase price. Either one you can put in this column here. Everything in yellow can be filled out, and everything in gray has a calculation that is done on its own. However, there are a few cells in here that are not protected like your previous calculator. That is intentional because I want you to have the ability to change a few of the formulas. Starting at the top, you will have the price. So you put in the price in the yellow, put in whatever you consider your down payment amount. And this I like to play with because sometimes I have a certain amount of money that I'm playing with, and I want to make the down payment fall into that parameter. So I might put in 25% if that's what I have, or I might put in 30% if that's what I have. But you'll notice everything changes when I do that. So doing 25%, that gives me a $900,000 loan on a $300,000 down payment. If I am financing any CapEx, for example, if I'm doing a bridge loan or a hard money loan, I might put that money in there. Then it gives you the total loan amount. It gives you a 4% closing. And if you have non-finance CapEx, put that number in the yellow box here. That'll give you the total amount of money you need invested to complete this deal. Going lower on the income side, what you will see is everything is in monthly numbers. So what you should do is take your trailing three and put that number in there, average it out, and come out with a monthly trailing three. If you don't have that, take the current rent or the pro forma rent. It's really up to you which one you use there. I generally use pro forma rent because I'm going to use pro forma taxes. So if I'm going to use pro forma rent, I have to use pro forma taxes. This will be up to you how aggressive or conservative you want to be with this income. Then you'll put any other income that you need to put in these columns. Unlike the other calculator, you're not breaking it down by unit because these are smaller deals. And you'll put in any laundry income. You'll put any advertising income you might have from a billboard or otherwise, parking income. These are things I've come across in the past when I created this. And then you'll have a gross income. It automatically factors in a 5% vacancy. Now, on smaller deals, 5% is a respectable amount. You really shouldn't experience much more than that on a smaller deal. Then it gives you the effective gross income. And if you come down a little further on the left-hand side, you'll see it tells you the values based on a cap rate. Now, as I mentioned, on smaller deals, cap rates are not as relevant. And then you'll look at the loan versus debt at 1.25. That's your debt coverage ratio. It should always be 1.25 or higher, so it will automatically calculate that for you. Coming over to the right side where you see expenses, you'll put in the pro forma taxes, pro forma insurance, any expenses you have for the following items. Utilities is not together, so if you have other utilities besides power and water, just add it to one of those columns or put it in the other column. Sometimes you have other expenses that might show up. Then here's another thing. The maintenance is automatically pre-calculated at 5%. I found in smaller deals that's a respectable amount, but if you think it's going to be more or less, if you come into this annual column, as I mentioned, it's not locked. So you could put your cursor in this column and then come up to the top and change that from 0.5 to 0.6, 0.7, whatever you think it's going to be. Right now, defaulted at 5%. The same thing with management. Smaller deals tend to be around 10% management. So if you can get management cheaper, you can put that right up there and then change that to whatever percentage you plan on paying. Here's the beauty of smaller deals. Smaller deals you can manage yourself, and you can pocket all of that management money, but always include it as part of the expenses. After you've done all that, you'll have your NOI. The NOI has a built-in calculator that's going to tell you what the debt coverage ratio should be. So then you'll put in the monthly debt service. In a moment, I'll show you how to calculate that. And then you'll have your gross expenses, and this tells you the cash flow. So as you can see, there's $43,000 cash flow on a $300,000 investment, $336,000 investment, which gives you a 13% cash on cash. Now, smaller deals, you might be able to find numbers like that, depending on how you're sourcing your deals. And as you can see, the cap rate is a high 8, almost 9. Again, cap rates don't factor in all that much into these smaller deals. And then you have your debt coverage ratio. So this will be a very financeable deal because it's way higher than 1.25. And as you come down, it gives you the expense ratio of the property. As you can see, it's 39%, which is probably fair for a small deal, because small deals generally don't have as much ongoing maintenance as other deals. It gives you the expense per unit, and it also gives you the cost per unit. You had 24 units at 50,000 per unit based on the purchase price. Next thing I'm going to take you over to, I'm going to stop this. This is the financial calculator. You will use this to come up with that monthly payment. Now, there are a number of calculators on this page. I would save it. It's fncalculators.com. I would save it because it has multiple uses. I'm not going to go into all of its uses. The two that is most important for you as a real estate investor is the load calculator, which will tell you if you have a monthly payment, what your monthly payment will be. So let's assume in the scenario I just discussed, we have a $900,000 loan. We have, let's say, a 7% interest rate, and we have a 30-year term. And you can do it by month, which is 360. Either way you do it, it's going to come up with the same. And then I calculate. And as you can see here, it tells me my monthly payment would be $59.87. My total payments would be $2 million and change. That's over the life of the loan. And my total interest and my annual payments. So this is good for you to figure out the monthly payment. However, in this scenario of the calculator I will show you, you want to do the reverse. So the reverse is true. If you go to the time value of money calculator, that's TMV, you'll put in the payment that you can afford. And remember, it shows you the maximum allowable payment on the calculator. So if you didn't know how much of a loan you're going to get, you simply wanted to figure out how much of a loan can this property afford. What you would do is put in the number that came up in the lower left-hand corner that said ratio maximum debt. So you'll put in whatever that number was. I believe it was 73 or something like that. 7305, if I'm not mistaken. In any case, you can go back and check it. So I'll put in the payment, and the payment always goes as a negative number. So you put negative 7305. You'll put the interest rate at whatever interest rate it is. I'm going to put it 7. And here I'm going to put in 360 months, which represents the interest rate. And then I hit present value, right? That if I hit that number, the PV, it's going to tell me what the loan amount I could borrow with that kind of a payment. Okay? So in the previous scenario, I think the payment was 6,000 or change, or 59.98, I think 87 it was. And if I do the same thing again, hit present value, you see it tells me it's a $900,000 loan. This is good when you have 3 of the 4 necessary numbers. So you can play around with this, but let's assume I didn't know what the payment was. And I knew how much of a loan I was going to get, 900,000. And I don't know what the payment is, but I do know the interest and I do know the month. I put payment, and you see it comes up with 59.87. So it can always figure out if you have 3 items, it'll figure out the 4th. Okay, so again, I can change this again, assuming I have a $6,000 budget, and I say present value, it tells me I could borrow 901. But let's say I want to borrow 901, but I could get it at a much lower interest rate. So let's assume I could get it at 6. If I get it at 6, it'll show me when pressing present value, I could borrow $1 million if it's at 6. This comes in very handy when you have 3 of the 4 parameters. So play around with this when you have a deal and you don't know what you can afford or what the property can withstand. It gives you that opportunity. Use this on smaller deals because it won't have the asset management and it won't have the acquisition fee in it, the calculator that is. It gives you an opportunity to play around with the calculator, coming up with different scenarios, stress testing the deal to see where it will fall in and how you could acquire the property. So continuing on, you'll have that calculator, you have how to use it, and that's it for now. I'll see you on the next lesson, scholars.